After 15 years behind bars, you're free.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
I mean, it's good. You know, it's a blessing. It's literally a miracle.
In the labyrinth of the justice system, some teens have found themselves facing lengthy sentences. This video will explore the 20 longest sentences given to real teens, focusing on their unique stories and the complex circumstances surrounding their cases. Let us delve into this somber yet thought-provoking journey. Number 1. Cyntoia Brown. Cyntoia Brown's story is marked by a tumultuous upbringing and a bid for survival that saw her sentenced to life in prison at just 16 years old. Born in Fort Campbell, Kentucky, she was adopted at an early age by Ellinette Brown. Cyntoia's life was filled with struggles, including an emotionally unstable childhood and being a victim of sex trafficking. In August 2004, the teen found herself in a situation that would drastically change her life. Allegedly fearing for her life, she shot and killed a 43-year-old man named Johnny Allen, who had picked her up for sex. She argued that she believed Allen was reaching for a gun, and her actions were in self-defense. The prosecution, however, painted a different picture, presenting Cyntoia as a teenage prostitute who killed Allen to rob him. Consequently, she was tried as an adult and sentenced to life imprisonment, stirring debates about the justice system's treatment of juveniles and victims of sex trafficking. Brown's case became a cause célèbre, attracting attention from celebrities like Rihanna and Kim Kardashian West. In 2017, Brown was granted clemency by Tennessee Governor Bill Haslam after serving 15 years. Today, Brown holds a college degree and uses her experience to advocate for criminal justice reform and victims of trafficking. Number 2. Quantel Lotz. At the tender age of 14, Quantel Lotz received a sentence most adults couldn't fathom: life without the possibility of parole. Growing up in St. Louis, Missouri, Lotz had a childhood marked by abuse and neglect, often finding himself in violent environments that would shape his future in devastating ways. The fateful event unfolded on a day in 1999 when a heated argument between Lotz and his stepbrother, Michael Burton, turned deadly. Lotz stabbed Burton, tragically ending his life. The incident was a horrifying escalation of their often volatile relationship, influenced by their harsh upbringing. Although Lotz was a minor at the time of the crime, he was tried as an adult due to the severity of the crime. His sentence, life without parole, was shocking, setting a grim milestone as one of the harshest sentences ever given to a teenager. Lotz's story doesn't end there. With the help of his lawyer, and in light of evolving laws and understanding of juvenile psychology, he was able to appeal his case. The U.S. Supreme Court had ruled it unconstitutional to sentence juveniles to mandatory life without parole, and this ruling played a crucial role in Lotz's appeal. After spending nearly 2 decades behind bars, he was resentenced in 2017 and is now eligible for parole. Despite the gravity of their actions, these teens' stories serve as a profound reminder of the need for a nuanced approach in treating juvenile offenders, addressing systemic issues, and fostering rehabilitation. Number 3. Christy Cherami. Christy Cherami's life took a disastrous turn at 16 when she was implicated in the murder of her fiancé's great-aunt and subsequently sentenced to life without parole. Christy's story is an example of how youthful naivety can lead to devastating consequences. Christy, a teenager from Mississippi, was engaged to her 20-year-old boyfriend, Claude, in 1994. Claude had devised a plan to murder his great-aunt, whose ranch he expected to inherit. Although Christy didn't partake in the actual murder, she was present and even drafted a fake letter to cover up the crime. The letter's discovery led to Christy's arrest and the unraveling of the murder plot. At her trial, Christy's attorney advised her to plead guilty to second-degree murder, expecting a lenient sentence because of her age and lack of direct involvement in the murder. The strategy backfired, and Christy was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Over the years, Christy's case garnered attention from various human rights organizations, leading to a retrial in 2010. The court acknowledged her role as an accomplice and the mitigating factor of her age at the time of the crime, but upheld her sentence. Despite her situation, Christy committed herself to education, earning her GED and even teaching other inmates. In November 2020, after nearly 3 decades in prison, her life sentence was commuted to 40 years, giving her a glimmer of hope for a life outside prison. Number 4. Latarian Milton. Latarian Milton's case is unusual, as the Florida native gained notoriety at the young age of 7 for grand theft, auto, and assault. However, as Milton grew into his teens, his crimes escalated, and his encounters with the law became increasingly serious. Milton first gained national attention in 2008 when he stole his grandmother's SUV and took it for a joyride, causing multiple accidents along the way. When confronted about his actions by local news reporters, he showed a shocking lack of remorse, stating that he did it because it was fun to do bad things. Unfortunately, Milton's behavior worsened as he grew older. At 16, he was involved in an armed robbery, resulting in his arrest and a significant sentence. This event marked the culmination of a series of encounters with law enforcement, displaying a clear pattern of escalating criminal behavior. Milton's story is particularly thought-provoking as it highlights the challenge of early-onset criminal behavior. His case has served as a cautionary tale, prompting discussions about the importance of early intervention, the effect of media attention on troubled youths, and the potential repercussions of neglecting such issues. Number 5. Antonio Nunez Jr. Antonio Nunez Jr.'s life took a catastrophic turn when, at the age of 16, he was implicated in a kidnapping case that ended in a brutal homicide. The incident unfolded on New Year's Eve in 2010 in the southern area of Texas. Nunez, along with 2 older men, was accused of abducting a 15-year-old girl and her boyfriend, Jose Avila. The kidnapped couple were driven to a remote location where Avila was fatally shot. The young girl was released unharmed but traumatized by the horrifying experience. Nunez was charged as an adult and subsequently convicted of murder. The court handed him a life sentence, marking him as one of the youngest individuals in the United States to receive such a harsh punishment. Throughout the trial, his attorneys argued that Nunez was merely a follower, manipulated by the older co-defendants, and should not be held to the same level of accountability. However, the plea fell on deaf ears, and Nunez was sentenced to spend the rest of his life in prison. His story raises complex questions about the fairness of trying juveniles as adults and the implications it carries for their futures. Number 6. Jordan Brown. In 2009, Jordan Brown from Pennsylvania became one of the youngest people in American history to be charged with homicide. At just 11 years old, Brown was accused of murdering his father's pregnant fiancée, Kenzie Houck, and her unborn child. Prosecutors alleged that Brown had committed the crime due to jealousy over the impending arrival of a new sibling. Consequently, Brown was charged as an adult, inciting a legal battle and public outcry. The court's decision to try him as an adult was seen by many as extreme, given his age and developmental stage. A 3-year-long legal battle ensued, ultimately leading to his conviction and sentencing to a juvenile detention center until the age of 21. However, Brown's legal team fought tooth and nail to appeal the decision. They argued that crucial evidence had been disregarded and that the investigation had been flawed. In 2018, after years of legal wrangling, the Superior Court of Pennsylvania overturned Brown's conviction, citing a lack of physical evidence. This event marked a significant moment in the debate over the treatment of juvenile offenders, specifically focusing on the appropriate age for a minor to be charged as an adult. Number 7. Lionel Tate. In 2001, Lionel Tate became the youngest American ever sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. At the age of 12, Tate was convicted for the murder of Tiffany Unick, a 6-year-old girl his mother was babysitting. The incident occurred in 1999 in Broward County, Florida, when Tate and Tiffany were left alone watching television. What transpired during this time resulted in Tiffany's death due to severe injuries. Tate claimed that they were imitating wrestling moves they had seen on TV, but the severity of Tiffany's injuries indicated a much more violent encounter. Tate's trial ignited a firestorm of controversy. Tried as an adult for first-degree murder, he was convicted and sentenced to life without parole. The case sparked widespread debate over the ethics of trying a child as an adult and sentencing them to life in prison. Eventually, the severity of Tate's punishment drew scrutiny from the international community and human rights organizations who advocated for a more compassionate approach given his age. In 2004, an appeals court overturned his sentence due to the fact that he hadn't been given a mental competency hearing before or during his trial. He accepted a plea deal for second-degree murder, which replaced his life sentence with a term of 1 year of house arrest, followed by 10 years of probation. Sadly, Tate's story did not improve following his release. He would find himself in and out of prison due to multiple probation violations and additional criminal charges, raising serious questions about the rehabilitative function of the justice system. Number 8. Jacob IND. In 1992, 15-year-old Jacob IND from Colorado was convicted for the murders of his mother and stepfather, Pamela and Kermode Jordan. The case presented a chilling narrative of alleged prolonged abuse that ended in a gruesome act of violence. Jacob and his older brother Charles endured years of emotional, physical, and sexual abuse from their parents, according to court testimony. Frustrated by the system's failure to protect them, Jacob devised a plan to murder his abusers. In December 1992, Jacob and his friend Gabriel Adams executed the horrific plan, resulting in the death of Jacob's mother and stepfather. The teenagers used a combination of knives, a baseball bat, and a gun to carry out the murders. During his trial, Jacob argued that he acted out of desperation, with the murders being his last resort for escaping the abusive situation at home. However, these pleas didn't spare him from a life sentence without the possibility of parole. His case garnered attention and sympathy, with many arguing that his circumstances highlighted the dire need for systemic changes to protect children from abuse. Over 2 decades later, in 2019, Jacob was resentenced and given the possibility of parole after 40 years, reflecting the evolving standards in the sentencing of juveniles. Number 9. Dominic Culpepper. Dominic Culpepper from Wisconsin found himself on the wrong side of the law when he was involved in a fatal shooting in 2009. At just 16, he was implicated in a robbery gone wrong that resulted in the death of a store clerk, triggering a legal battle that would mark him as a young offender with one of the lengthiest sentences. The case, featuring a juvenile offender, ignited a conversation about the justice system's approach to adolescents involved in serious crimes. Critics argue that sentencing a teenager to such a long prison term does not take into consideration the individual's potential for growth and rehabilitation. On the other hand, proponents of the sentence argue that the severity of the crime justified the length of the punishment. Number 10. Paul Gingerich. Paul Gingerich's case shook the nation in 2010 when, at just 12 years old, he became one of the youngest children in Indiana's history to be sentenced as an adult. Gingerich, alongside 15-year-old Colt Lundy, was implicated in the murder of Lundy's stepfather, Philip Danner. The murder plot, according to court documents, was hatched by the 2 young boys in response to Lundy's fear of his stepfather. They believed that Danner would be violent towards Lundy if he discovered their plan to run away to Arizona. The boys shot Danner in his home, took his car, and fled the state but were soon apprehended in Illinois. Given the severity of the crime, Gingerich was waived to adult court, where he pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit murder. He received a 30-year sentence, marking a grim milestone as one of the youngest children to be sentenced as an adult. Over the years, Gingerich's case has prompted significant legal reform in Indiana, specifically dealing with juvenile sentencing and waiver to adult court. His sentence was eventually overturned in 2015 following these legislative changes, and he was resentenced to 25 years, with some portion to be served in a group home or on probation. Number 11. George Stinney. The case of George Stinney, a black teenager from South Carolina, is one of the most infamous in the annals of American justice. In 1944, at just 14 years old, Stinney was wrongfully convicted for the murder of 2 white girls, Betty June Binnicker, aged 11, and Mary Emma Thames, aged 8. His trial and subsequent execution remain an enduring symbol of racial injustice. The girls had been found in a ditch, killed by a blow to the head. Despite the lack of physical evidence linking Stinney to the crime, local law enforcement arrested him. Under duress, Stinney allegedly confessed to the murders, a confession he later recanted. In 2014, Stinney's conviction was posthumously vacated by a South Carolina judge who ruled that he had not received a fair trial. While this ruling came 70 years too late for Stinney, it served as a form of belated justice and a historical acknowledgement of a gross miscarriage of justice. Number 12. Mason Summers. Mason Summers' case is a sobering reminder of how a teenager's life can be irrevocably altered by a moment of violence. In 2011, at the age of 16, Summers was convicted for a deadly shooting that occurred during a botched robbery in Phoenix, Arizona. Summers, alongside a few older accomplices, attempted to rob a convenience store. During the robbery, Summers shot and killed the store owner. He was subsequently arrested and charged with first-degree murder and armed robbery. Despite his age, Summers was tried as an adult, a decision that has often sparked debate regarding the ethical and legal implications of treating minors as adults in the court of law. His trial culminated with a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. The case of Mason Summers underscores the debate around the appropriateness of severe sentences for juvenile offenders. Critics argue that such harsh penalties do not take into account the cognitive development of adolescents or their capacity for reform. Despite these arguments, others contend that the gravity of Summers' crimes justified his life sentence. Number 13. Andrew Golden. Andrew Golden's case is perhaps one of the most shocking in recent American history. In 1998, Golden, together with his fellow middle school student Mitchell Johnson, carried out a meticulously planned massacre at Westside Middle School in Jonesboro, Arkansas. The pair, aged 11 and 13 respectively, staged a fire drill to lure their classmates and teachers outside. Once the school was evacuated, Golden and Johnson opened fire from a nearby wooded area, killing 4 students and a teacher and wounding 10 others. Golden was released in 2007 upon turning 21, but his life post-release was marred by legal troubles. In 2008, he was killed in a car crash at the age of 33. His case serves as a chilling reminder of the potential for extreme violence among even the youngest members of society and the challenges in dealing with such situations within the legal system. Number 14. Nathaniel Abraham. In 1997, Nathaniel Abraham from Michigan became one of the youngest individuals in U.S. history to be charged and convicted for murder. At the tender age of 11, Abraham was implicated in a shooting that resulted in the death of 18-year-old Ronnie Green, Jr. Abraham, who was said to have the mental capacity of a 6- to 8-year-old, was tried as an adult, sparking an outcry from civil rights organizations and juvenile justice advocates. His case fueled an ongoing debate about the ethics and legal implications of trying minors as adults. Abraham's story does not end happily, however. Despite early signs of turning his life around after release, he later found himself on the wrong side of the law once again, facing multiple charges in separate incidents. His case raises complex questions about the efficacy of the juvenile justice system and its ability to rehabilitate young offenders. Number 15. Robert Thompson and John Venables. The United Kingdom was rocked by a shocking and tragic crime in 1993 when 2-year-old James Bulger was murdered by 2 10-year-old boys, Robert Thompson and John Venables. The case was harrowing not only for the brutal nature of the crime, but also due to the tender age of the perpetrators, making it one of the most high-profile cases in British criminal history. Thompson and Venables lured Bulger away from his mother at a shopping center in Bootle, Liverpool. The toddler's battered body was found 2 days later on a railway line. The brutality of the crime and the age of the killers sparked outrage and horror nationwide and worldwide. Both boys were charged and found guilty of murder, becoming the youngest convicted murderers in modern English history. They were sentenced to detention until they reached adulthood, at which point their release would be determined by the UK's parole board. In 2001, both Thompson and Venables were released on lifelong license, and new identities were given to them for their protection due to the high-profile nature of their crime. However, Venables has since been returned to prison on multiple occasions for parole violations, reigniting public debate about the case. Number 16. Cruel Cognier. Cruel Cognier's case is a stark reminder of how a momentary decision can have life-altering consequences. At the age of 15, Cognier, a resident of Newark, New Jersey, was involved in a fatal shooting that led to his conviction for murder. In 2012, Konya and a few accomplices attempted to rob a local businessman. The robbery ended in a fatal shooting, leading to Konya's arrest and subsequent trial. Despite his age, he was tried as an adult, a common but contentious practice in the American legal system when dealing with serious juvenile crimes. His trial ended with a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. Konya's case has since been referenced in debates around the severity of sentences for juvenile offenders, the potential for their rehabilitation, and the societal implications of incarcerating minors for life. Number 17. Curtis Jones. Curtis Jones's case is a tragic tale of abuse and its aftermath. At the age of 12, Jones and his 13-year-old sister, Catherine Jones, became the youngest children in U.S. history to be charged as adults for first-degree murder. The siblings were residents of Brevard County, Florida. Living under the roof of their father and stepmother, both children were victims of severe abuse. Curtis was allegedly sexually abused by a male relative living in the same house. When the children's plea for help went unanswered by the authorities, they decided to take matters into their own hands. In 1999, they hatched a plan to kill their father, stepmother, and the other male family member. However, they ended up killing their father's girlfriend, Sonia Nicole Spites. Panicked by the enormity of their actions, the children fled but were soon captured. They were tried as adults and sentenced to 18 years in prison, followed by probation for life. Curtis Jones was released in 2015 at the age of 29. His story brings to light the complex issues around child abuse, the response of social services, and the need for reform in the sentencing of juvenile offenders. Number 18. Mitchell Johnson. Mitchell Johnson, alongside his classmate Andrew Golden, were responsible for a heinous act of violence that sent shockwaves across the nation. At the age of 13, Johnson participated in a meticulously planned and executed shooting at West Side Middle School in Jonesboro, Arkansas, in 1998. The young boys staged a false fire alarm, luring their fellow students and teachers outside. As people filed out of the school, Johnson and Golden, positioned in a nearby wooded area, opened fire. The horrifying event led to the death of 5 individuals, including 4 students and a teacher. The incident not only sparked conversations about school safety and gun control, but also about how the judicial system deals with juvenile offenders guilty of serious crimes. Johnson's life after the release presents a grim picture of the challenges that exist in reintegrating such individuals into society. Number 19. Cameron Coker. The case of Cameron Coker is a grim reminder of the potential lethal consequences of child's play. In 1989, Coker, a 9-year-old from Pennsylvania, shot and killed his 7-year-old neighbor, Jessica Carr. The event was shocking due to its senseless nature and the tender age of the involved individuals. On the day of the shooting, Coker, reportedly upset over losing a video game to Jessica, retrieved his father's hunting rifle. From his living room, he fired a single shot towards Jessica, who was riding a snowmobile in her backyard. The bullet struck Jessica, who later succumbed to her injuries. Cameron Coker was charged as an adult with criminal homicide, making him one of the youngest individuals in U.S. history to be tried as an adult. The court proceedings generated national attention and debate over the justice system's approach towards young offenders. Ultimately, Coker was convicted of involuntary manslaughter and was sentenced to a private residential community home until his 21st birthday. Post-release, Coker has managed to steer clear of legal troubles. His case, nonetheless, has left a lasting impression on the national consciousness regarding the treatment and sentencing of juvenile offenders. Number 20. Derek and Alex King. In 2001, the United States was taken aback by a shocking crime committed by 2 young brothers, Derek and Alex King. Aged 13 and 12, respectively, the siblings were found guilty of bludgeoning their father, Terry King, to death in their home in Florida. Their case took an unexpected turn when a family friend, Ricky Chavis, a convicted child molester, was implicated. The boys claimed that they had killed their father to protect themselves from physical abuse and that they planned to live with Chavis afterward. The King brothers case is a clear example of how children can fall prey to manipulation and highlights the issue of minors being tried and sentenced as adults for serious crimes. This case, among others, underscores the importance of appropriate intervention and prevention strategies to deter juvenile delinquency.